Institute for Medical Education, which has been around now for over 10 years, 12 years. Rena will give us a background on that. But Mount Sinai is unique in a lot of academic institutions because it really has an amazingly strong commitment to the clinician educator. And while a lot of big academic centers put all the emphasis on the funded investigator, Sinai highly recognizes our master clinicians. And so the Institute of Medical Education was developed to really promote careers as educators. And it got off to a little bit of a slow start because it's difficult changing culture, but has just continued taking momentum. And the director of the Institute for Medical Education is Rena Carini. And she's really an accomplished educator. She works with the medical school and Dean Muller, and is just really a tremendous asset for us. Under her leadership, the Institute has built out a number of programs that help promote the development in careers and focus and opportunities for educators. And so with that as an introduction, I thought Rena could give us some background. And then what we're going to do is give a very brief overview of how one joins the Institute for Medical Education and a little, some tips and pearls on how to submit an application to become a member. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Andy. And I have to apologize in advance to Brett, who's going to think that the first 5 slides, he's in another sort of deja vu, Groundhog Day. So thanks, Brett, for hanging in there for the first part. It's great to see all of you. And I look forward to hearing from you, answering any questions you have. And, I know time passes in a weird sort of way, but Dr. Jagoda, we've been around since 2001. I can hardly believe it.
Oh yeah, I can't believe it.
Before my tenure. So the Institute was one of the first set of institutes that was formed at Sinai, these cross-disciplinary, cross-cutting approaches to innovation and science and education that the health system started. So I'm going to share my screen with some slides first, and then recognize that we are going to have a chance for me to close this out and hear from you. Please bear with Zoom. And all right, so do you see the introductory slide, everyone? If you could give me a thumbs up, those of you who have a camera on. You do? Perfect. Okay, great. So the Institute, for those of you who don't know, is the organizational core that focuses on the development and dissemination of best practices and innovations in teaching and learning, and seeks to be the health professional development source for all the educators across the school. And we want to nurture and develop this community of educators and scholars, really as it links directly to the critical medical education mission of the health system. We've used 5 big strategic approaches to fulfill our mission and vision. I'm going to talk about those briefly as we go forward. The first is our professional development programming and support. We recognize that as educators, we're often seeking ways to learn from each other and grow and develop as educators. Compared to investigators, there is not a formal curriculum related to the professional development of medical education. And so we have a variety of opportunities. The first is our Education Research Day, which actually brings together colleagues from across the health system to present their scholarship in medical education. Many of the Department of Emergency Medicine faculty have served as facilitators for this program and have submitted outstanding work in this area. We take projects from early stage sort of fundamental design questions all the way to scholarship that has really completed data analysis, et cetera. The goal here is not to sort of just showcase what's going on, but to use the feedback by guided facilitator walks to enhance the scholarship. The second is a very robust programming in medical education grand rounds that's held twice a month. And it's on Wednesdays at noon. It conflicts, I know, with some of the emergency department programming, but what we have done to make sure that we allow for people to watch asynchronously, if you will, is that all our presentations are recorded and available on our website following the actual presentation live. And during the live system, thanks to COVID though, we have really done it via Zoom, which has really enhanced the participation. We have about 100 people participating in the session. And we've had the opportunity to bring in some incredible speakers from across the nation. We've had faculty, for example, this is just our spring list lineup. We've had Dr. Agard talking about clinical teaching models in sort of time-limited environments. We had Dr. Gabster, who is an outstanding resident from Stanford, who published on the impact of COVID and gender-related promotion and retention. We have Dr. Brott coming up from Oregon Health Sciences, whose entire career has focused on programs to enhance the retention and recruitment of those who are of Native American and Alaska Natives in health sciences. And then we have Dr. Schiffer Ginsburg coming to us, who's much more a scientist, an education scientist, who will be talking to us about the role of narrative assessments in making evaluation decisions of learners. And we'll end the year with Dr. Rhea Boyd, who some of you may already know, but has been a leading national voice in considering how racism impacts health outcomes and how health systems across the nation have to do better to reduce disparities. So we have really been able to bring an incredible lineup of people, and we hope that all of you have a chance to participate, but also to go to our website if you are not able to attend. On some of my slides, I've put something marked in blue, and that is because the Institute cares very much about our future and the pipeline, as your department does, nurturing students, nurturing fellows and residents to be the future leaders in medical education. I was one of the founding course directors of the Harvard Macy course for fellows and residents. We started this course 8 years ago, and the Department of Emergency Medicine has sent trainees to this program. And it's a really incredible opportunity. It's an intensive professional development program for those who aspire to be medical education leaders. It is actually the only course of its kind nationwide. We have about 65 scholars a year. We've trained over 350 graduates, most of whom have secured their first professional jobs with a foothold in medical education. And Sinai has been a leader in sending residents and trainees there because the mission is also to graduate those who are going to be the next generation. And so we've sent between 16 and 25 trainees a year. And then from those who are going, the IME has a peer review committee that actually looks through the applications and selects 2 candidates who get a full tuition scholarship. And so this course has been growing growing in stature and growing in interest among our trainees who have this vision of themselves as medical education leaders. The next pronged approach we've used in terms of strategy has been faculty development. The Institute last year took on the role of sort of trying to meet at baseline what the accreditors at the UME and GME level expect for faculty development. This is not the sort of be all and end all of faculty development. It is what is the absolute minimum in terms of accreditation requirements for a health system as large and vast as we are. And so that training is ongoing and annual. We've run it about 68 times this past year. We sort of tailored it this year to the idea of how does one use remote learning platforms to engage with learners in the preclinical world, in the clinical environment, the use of telehealth and telehealth measures so that it was relevant. And we are now in the process of building the new modules for the coming academic year. We recognize and understand that educators cannot and should not be expected to come to ongoing training that is the same as last year. And so we're working with our GME and UME partners to make sure that the training we offer this year is again relevant to the challenges they face. But we also know that there are many other areas that you as educators want to learn about. So we offer 4 to 6 content-focused workshop sessions throughout the year. We just launched our spring calendar, which has about 11 or 12 sessions. These are based on a survey of educators and what are high yield areas of interest, things like practices, teaching remotely in clinical environment, giving effective feedback. How does one write effective letters of recommendation? How does one teach in the bedside in an ambulatory environment versus an operating room environment? And these are, again, with the gratitude to Zoom, we've been able to offer them at all different times of day and across the health system to accommodate a variety of schedules. And finally, we know there's a tremendous sort of list of publications that come out each month across the medical education journals and the content specific journals. And so along with my deputy director, Dr. Rob Fowler, we actually look through the table of contents and the articles from across all publications in medical education that come out monthly. And we cull what we think would be of value to our educators across the health system and send out Article Watch every month, hoping that it can cue you into the top literature, top methodologies, ideas that you might have to be able to implement in your programs. This is just a representation of our accreditation-focused faculty development.
Rena, let me just ask, is everybody aware of this, of these Article Watch? Are you picking them up when these flash on your email, or is this, Rena, do you have any way that you monitor what?
We don't, Andy, because we do not want to get into that. We want folks to, when they sign up for it, to actually be able to self-monitor. I think our openness is we invite you to be part of it, to be on the listserv, and then we've done a big behemoth bulk of work for that month, and hopefully people will queue in. What's really nice about them, I can see Chris nodding a little bit, is this idea that the links are provided in such a really easy, friendly way, so that when you get Article Watch, just click on it, it takes you right to the article. So there's not even sort of 5 steps where you're opening PDFs or clicking on a link and going to like a small abstract.
They definitely make it as easy as possible. Yeah.
We have a med ed fellow who will be starting in July, and I bet you this would be she would probably be delighted to work with you in helping curate monthly things. That's something we should file in the back of our mind.
So this was, for example, what I talked about, level 1 accreditation focused faculty development, given, the transitions that occurred in terms of the environment of teaching. These were the 2 topics we did. We trained just hundreds and hundreds of people across the health system. And in terms of that skills-based faculty development, these were the topics for this past year. And we'll have many of these this coming spring. Many of you have seen the email with a variety of times in order to sign up for these. I want to highlight that our bucket of scholarship and research support is another strategy we've used. We have brown bag sessions where people would actually bring their lunch and we'd sit around and talk about projects. Now that is done remotely, but this idea that we want to engage with people thinking through the design of medical education research, but also at any step of that process. They've got an idea, they want to formulate a research question, they want feedback on the research question. Or they've got the question and they're thinking through the methodology and outcomes that they might want to select. Or they're thinking about how they're going to actually take all that information and present it in an effective manner and submit it for dissemination at a national meeting or through a manuscript. We welcome all those types and all those moments in time in scholarship because it brings our advanced members together to really focus on the person presenting and give them feedback. We've had people saying, I'm doing a national presentation on XYZ topic related to education. Could I just workshop it with you? I want to see how it lands. And we've done that. So it's really about the person presenting and what they want to achieve from it. Dr. Fowler and I do a lot of one-on-one consultations on research and design in medical education with people who reach out all the time. For our students, we have been fortunate to have a scholarly year student that's philanthropically supported. They can work with faculty anywhere across the health system. It's not with one of us. And we've also been fortunate to support the funding for a summer research student, again, with any faculty across the system, but focused on medical education research. And this past year, we were able to do 2 wonderful things. One was bring the Association of American Medical Colleges Medical Education Research Certificate, which is a 6-session certificate program, which talks about the fundamentals of medical education research design. We had about 20 faculty members participate because that's the sort of limit the AAMC puts on it, who completed the entire program. And we're hoping to be able to offer that this coming year as well. And this past year, with philanthropic support, we were delighted to be able to offer 5 faculty challenge grants. The individuals who received these grants were given a no-cost extension because of COVID, as you can imagine, but really represent the breadth of excellence in our program. The Department of Emergency Medicine has 2 proud recipients, I know, Chris Struther and McKinney Chisholm Straker. And we look forward in this coming year to hearing from them and their work in this program. So this is a wonderful chance to actually support in a meaningful way scholarship that is occurring in medical education. The next approach we've used is sponsorship, recognition, and awards. We know that medical education is often a passion for people, and they approach it with tremendous consideration of the learners, and we want to acknowledge that commitment. And so we have Excellence in Teaching Awards. There are 17 awards. Every single year, this gets more and more competitive. The depth of expertise and sort of submissions is just staggering. And again, the department has been very well represented in these awards. We also recognize that those of us who have risen in medical education and have the fortune of being in the positions we are can offer a lot of career guidance, but also sponsorship, introducing those who are new in medical education to connections so that they can start participating first as educators and then in leadership opportunities. So we spend a significant amount of time being open to providing goal-specific mentorship, advocating and connecting individuals towards different opportunities, helping them apply for new positions of leadership, helping them apply for new jobs, etc. We also collaborate a lot with departments for promotion, review, and guidance. I've done countless faculty meetings. I meet with a lot of chairs will send me individuals who are thinking about going up on the clinician educator track to think through their sort of candidacy and appropriateness in areas of opportunity before they move forward. So advanced membership is the last strategy I want to talk about, because then I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into that. Every member of the Mount Sinai Health System is a basic member. We welcome every single person is a member of the IME. But advanced membership, which is at 2 levels, the fellow level or the master level, is what we consider advanced membership. And both those levels are for faculty. At the fellow level, the candidate should have a significant commitment to teaching and/or education and a portfolio of scholarly work in the area. The master educator level is also a faculty member who has demonstrated exceptional performance. It is a very coveted spot, and they have to have a pretty strong educational scholarship portfolio for that level. So generally, who applies for IME advanced membership? They are faculty who generally dedicate a very large portion of their careers to teaching and education. They have a commitment to and a demonstrated track record in scholarly work. They engage with the larger educational community beyond the scope of the health system, and really seek out advancement opportunities to make the education leadership role sort of a defining part of their life. What are the application components? There's usually a cover and a signature page. We ask for a philosophy of education centered around their role as an educator and their long-term goals, again, centered around education. And then there are what we call education category worksheets that I'll talk a little bit about, followed by a letter of support from their primary department chair or division chief, and then the Sinai formatted CV. And what I kind of want to alert you to is that these 2 components, the philosophy of education, long-term goals, and the education category worksheet, really are what in more national terms would be considered your educator portfolio.
Rena, you know, when we look at these applications, I have to say a lot of the applications don't reflect sufficient thought into philosophy. And this is a part of the application that's actually taken pretty seriously, because the committee is looking for people who have reflected on what it means to them to be an educator, a true philosophy, not what they've done. Your CV will say what you've done, but how you've taken your values and apply them to forming your approach as a teacher. And there are examples online that I think that you can look at of what they're looking at, but don't underestimate the importance of the philosophy piece. It's really key. It can open the door and it can close the door.
Right. No, that's right, Andy. And some people sort of either use that statement to summarize their CV, as Andy is referring to, or basically think of it as this kind of little appendix that no one cares about. And yet it's the sort of, can be a very revealing experience for the reader to contextualize the pages that they're going to read subsequently. This idea of knowing you and your identity as an educator, and then looking at the sort of details and kind of nitty gritty. So absolutely, to Andy's point, that's a very important piece of it. So the educator's portfolio, I've given a couple of, I've given a recommendation for a nice one-page summary that was the last page in academic medicine a few months ago, but it's really to complement the CV. It is an essential resource that highlights educational excellence. It is used across the nation at academic health centers for people applying for positions. I just spoke to a mentee of mine who's now an associate professor applying for a program director position at a pretty esteemed institution, and the initial application just to express interest in that PD position requires their educator's portfolio to start off, not even sort of next level to start. And the general sections are the educational philosophy, like we just talked about. What are your actual teaching experiences, leadership responsibilities, your educational contributions in a variety of domains that you will now see mirrored in our educational category statements. And it's descriptive and narrative. It's not this idea that you're sitting there saying, I taught 4 hours here and here's my average score. It's this idea that it's a synthesis, it's descriptive, it's in some way trying to summarize educational excellence in a variety of domains. So for us, those educational categories in our advanced membership are exactly those. There are 5 categories: direct teaching, innovative curriculum design and or assessment, advising and mentoring, educational administration and leadership, and education research and scholarship. For advanced membership, a candidate must apply in a minimum of 2 of those categories. And they submit evidence of quantity, quality, and dissemination as listed in the worksheet. I'll show you a sample in a minute, but the examples of those worksheets that Andy was referring to are available online for you to look at. We have a few samples to show you how they would be filled out. We wanted to represent the work being done since a person has been at the Mount Sinai Health System, and really not to focus on sort of, if you've been here 20 years like some of us, to not go back that long, but to really focus on the more proximate past 5 years. We have been very cognizant of the fact that our committee is reviewing dozens and dozens of pages across multiple applicants, and so we do not accept attachments. If there are citations, there are citations put in, and if there are quotes, there's quotes put in. We don't accept, reams of paper of evaluation for wherever evidence is needed. So this is just an example. This is an innovative curriculum design assessment worksheet. You'll see on one side the description of what you have to fill out by each row and a sample of what we're looking for in each row so that you can actually use this to guide how you fill in the worksheet. Candidates will say not only will they pick 2 buckets, but they will put in 2 or 3 worksheets for each bucket. So they won't lump if they've developed a curriculum in emergency management using a simulator program, and then they've developed a method for teaching ACLS using a different type of innovation in instructional design. They will actually fill out a worksheet for each of those within the same bucket. So so it's not only 2 buckets, but then you can put in several example worksheets. Again, you don't want to just put in worksheets because you're putting in worksheets. You want these to be absolutely representative of excellence when you fill them out.
I think one of the areas where people fail is documenting the evaluation and impact of what was done. And a lot of people do like some just brilliant stuff. So like if we take a Ruben Olmedo's toxicology elective, it's an innovation. It was a new program. He developed a great curriculum, no problem there. And then, but what would have to be done is some sort of pre-elective assessment and some post-evaluation assessment and some evaluation of impact by the students. And if you're able to do that, then it's really easy. The problem is when you retrospectively try to go backwards, it's too late because you've lost the opportunity for something like that to document the impact. So, we do so many innovative stuff in the department, whether it's the EKG elective or the EMS elective, toxicology, simulation, observerships for the first 2 years, so many incredible stuff. But you have to be thinking, how are you evaluating and documenting impact? That impact is key. And so if I think of the applications that weren't accepted, it's not because they weren't great applications. It's just because they didn't have the metric of impact. So think very much about that. Some of you will go to other institutions like Columbia or Yale, where everybody is expected to have a portfolio. Here it's optional for our clinician educators. But if you go somewhere, if you leave us, you might actually be expected to produce a portfolio if you're going to be core faculty or the clinician educator.
And I want to caution one more thing is that, you know, starting to fill out worksheets like this just is good habit and practice if you're an educator. It helps you understand some gaps. It helps you understand sort of how you're going to approach the next time you work in whatever bucket you're working in. And once you start building an educator's portfolio, this becomes, just like I mentioned about this mentee, this becomes something you can use to showcase when you apply for something new. And sometimes awards look for this. Like, what are the 3 things you want to highlight? And someone wants to write a letter for you to get an award. And they say, tell me, what are the 3 things that you want me to highlight when I write this letter? If you have that sort of front and center of the things you're most proud of that represent this excellence of who you are as an educator, it becomes easier to do that versus saying, oh yeah, here's my CV, go ahead, you know, take your pick. So what's the selection process? It's a faculty committee of internal and external medical education experts. Each application is reviewed by 3 faculty members. That each application is discussed by the entire committee, and the level, meaning fellow or master, is determined by the committee. It is not left to the applicant to say, I applied for master educator, and the committee says, well, you're not, and they don't give you anything. The committee selects the level for the candidate. And those who are not selected are provided very detailed feedback. And this is something we learned over the last few cycles, is that we want to be a welcoming institute. We do not want people to feel that we are harsh and not welcoming in their, as they see themselves as educators. And so we've been able to provide a lot of feedback to them. I will tell you that one of the most common areas that we have provided feedback on is the sloppiness of presentation. And I mean that with sincerity, that there are individuals who sort of start this process and say, oh my God, there are 2 more days and I'm just going to put something together. And the lack of quality reflected in those is very, very apparent early on to the committee. And that can be a very negative predictor of good outcomes, because you have committee members who are spending hundreds of hours reading these. And when things look sloppy and don't answer the question, it is very hard for a committee member to feel that they could offer this prestigious position to those faculty members. And so we often go back and share the feedback and give them some tips and invite them to apply in the next cycle. So what are the benefits of advanced membership? You do all this work, now what? You know, we have had countless examples of faculty members who are advanced members who have gotten leadership awards, education awards, new job opportunities, and at the appointments and promotions level, that this is looked at very, very favorably for the associate professor, generally speaking, the fellow level, and for a full professor in the clinician educator track, the master level. We recognize that this is not a sort of shoe-in, so neither Andy nor I want you to think that if you get this, you get that. But we want to make very, very sure that the Advancement and Promotions Committee is very, very, sees very strongly and favorably the process of external review that has gone into advanced membership selection, and uses that as a guide of evidence to support the external validation of a person's excellence in the field of medical education. And then we do ask something of you. We ask that our advanced members participate in IME-sponsored events, that they participate in things like grand rounds, they participate in brown bag sessions, they serve as leaders and mentors to those coming after them. And all our faculty members are very, very generous with their time. So it's a wonderful sort of collegial environment that really celebrates those who are committed to this. We currently have 46 fellow educators and 36 master educators. I've shown the 17 from the Department of Emergency Medicine. You guys are a growing group, really wonderfully represented across the health system. And it's a privilege for the IME to have you among us.
I'm sorry. You have to admit that was a beautiful slide.
Thank you, Dr. Jacob.
I mean, that's really, that really makes me smile.
It made me smile as I made it.
I should say that last year, 33% of the applications were from emergency medicine. And that, I think, makes us all so proud of the commitment we have as a department to educating.
Yes. I am proud of you guys too, and grateful for you. So there's a call that goes out system-wide. Our last cycle was just finished in 2020. The next cycle is to be determined. Our committee members are exhausted still. When I bump into some of them, they talk about how many they had to read. So we'll have to wait a little bit between our next cycle. It might be at the end of 2021, but we give a 3.5 to 4 month window from the time the announcement goes out. There's a 4-month window to start doing your work. And we run an application workshop to talk about how you complete the application during that process. And we provide these category worksheet examples on our website to guide you. So suffice it to say, when this call goes out, you will all hear about it. There'll be a nice long window, and these support mechanisms are in place as you plan to apply. And my last slide is to thank you and to tell you I would love for you to reach out if you would like a particular faculty development session for your division or your site. There is a form stack for you to complete, and we will come and do it. And if you'd like to join our listserv, to email us and we'll add you. That will put you on the list of all our grand rounds, but also allow you to get our article watch. And to thank you from Rob Fowler, Olga, Alaji Zidou, and myself. And I'll stop sharing and happy to chat.
That was great, Irina. And I'm just saying, I'm impressed with how much the IME is doing and how much it's grown, and what a great resource it is for all of us. I think the subtext of the application process is it's never too early to start putting it together, so that when you finally do open up accepting new applications, all somebody has to do is hit send. So just like keeping your CV updated, seriously, it's something to do while COVID's still here and you can't go out. Start putting together an application. Start thinking about what your philosophy as an educator is. It's when I did this, it was really tough thinking about what is my philosophy, and it forced me to reflect more than I really wanted to, but I did. And so think about it. Go to the site and look at it. And how about that?
I just want to say hi, Rita, and thank you for being here. Nice to see you again.
It's so good to see you, Dr. Richardson.
Yeah, Rita and I have spent many, many hours over the last couple of weeks on Zoom together.
And I can't wait to see you in person.
I know. But thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
To Andy's theme, I think as you're putting your file together, or even if you're not yet, keep in mind the things that we're always looking for is not just the content of what you're teaching, but the evaluation of it and the dissemination of it. Any course you put together, any fantastic session you come up with, always keep in mind, how am I going to evaluate this so I can make it better for next time? And how am I going to disseminate it to the rest of the world? Whether that's through, MedEd portal or poster presentations or manuscript, there's lots of ways to do it. But keeping those two things in mind as you're putting, your excellent sessions together that you're teaching, make it very easy to turn into portfolio product.
What other questions do you have? How can we be more of support to you?
What would you like Rena to do for you?
Rena had mentioned this. Originally, our idea was that in order to get promoted, you needed to have a portfolio. And she has worked very hard to convince the Appointment and Promotions Committee that that's the direction they should go in. Sinai's been very resistant to going that step, but I do think ultimately, sooner or later, a formal portfolio will be part of the clinician educator's application for promotion. all the more, it will be a gradual process, but all the more reason to kind of think about engaging in this process. And the article watch, you know, what a great resource for those of us who are educators and we want to know what are other people in the world doing to be better teachers. I think it's just kind of fundamental, and there's very few places that make it so readily available to faculty the way Rena and her team are doing it.
I also think it brings up a way to collaborate. I know some of you and some of us are part of the editorial boards on many journals, and I will tell you that the education literature has evolved significantly and moved away from the sort of simple teach versus nothing and look at outcomes. What is the comparison group? You know, really moving into methodology as a driver, the idea of generalizability. How do you reach out to other collaborators so that you do more than one site? How do you ask the harder questions more than the what questions, the how and why questions? How and why is learning occurring differently here? How and why is this occurring differently, or the experience different for this type of learner group in this type of different environment? Those complicated questions in medical education and the strength of the study design are becoming much, much more important in medical education research, and Article Watch can help you identify collaborators. And so if there's something that resonates with you, reach out to people with an idea that you have, that you're fleshing through and designing a study, because they could become collaborators with you for another site. They could partner with you to apply for smaller grants. The grant world in medical education is minuscule and does not have indirect cost at all, and so often is looked at very unfavorably. But there are foundation grants from the AAMC, there's foundation grants from the Macy Foundation, the AMA challenging education grants. There are small pockets of grants, the Kettering Foundation in Ohio. There's some small grants that might be great for a small multi-center study that changes the way you evaluate and the quality of your study design. So Article Watch can help you identify a lot of cool people to reach out to as well.
All right. It's your chance. Any other questions? Rena, are there any committees or any groups that the IME sometimes offers junior faculty to get involved in?
Yes, we actually do, Andy, and those are mostly for advanced members. So once an advanced member is part of the IME, they serve on many committees. Many of you that I'm looking at on the screen serve on our committees for Education and Research Day, for Distinction in Medical Education, for the Selection of Excellence in Teaching Awards. And so again, we are so grateful for that service. And I think it also allows this community of educators to come together. I know that members have met on, or faculty have met on our committee, and the next thing you know, the person's being invited for grand rounds at another site, et cetera. So absolutely the opportunities are there. And we want our membership to be a part of sort of thinking through not just sort of who we pick for these honors, but also our process and how to make it more equitable, fair, thoughtful. And so the advanced members serve on all our committees.
So that's really another incentive to want to become part of the IME, because it gives you foundation for collaboration and expanding your network. That's
this year, we're going to reach out to all our advanced members to ask what areas of expertise they have in terms of speaking. Rob and I get a lot of requests for grand rounds around the country, given that most grand rounds are now done remotely. Especially those in education, we want you guys to tell us what you are expert at talking about, because that is an external validation that when you apply for appointments and promotions, this idea that you are known, this idea that your reach is regional and then national, we want to make sure that we have a speaker database of outstanding educators and the topics they're most comfortable with, so that we can actually amplify your voices and allow you to speak broadly nationwide.
I'll second that works. I submitted a couple of topics of mine this year, and within weeks, I think, got an invitation from another New York City program to come and give a grand rounds to their pediatric residency. So definitely worthwhile putting your name in that hat.
Great, congratulations, Chris.
It's all owes to you.
No.
You get all the credit for that one.
No. So I don't want to force you guys to stick on the call, but if you need me, you know where to find me. Andy definitely knows, and Lynn knows where to find me. So
Thank you so much for joining us.
my pleasure. Have a great rest of the evening.
Okay.
Thank you for everything that you do for us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, Rena.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.